So let's go ahead and get started. So we are talking about our Cuba Women's Retreat today. We've got myself, founder of Traverse Journeys, on the call. We've got our amazing retreat leader, Kim, and we have our local Cuba organizer, Andrew. So you're going to hear from all of us today. We'll be covering all kinds of questions and topics. So just a quick start, we'll introduce Traverse. If you don't know us, we're Traverse Journeys. We do trips, group trips, self-guided, custom trips to about 25 locations. Our tagline is People, Planet, Purpose. So we're really about people to people travel, human interaction, like transformative travel through communication and conversations and experiences. And we're very conscious about our impact on the earth, what we're leaving behind, leaving no trace. We visit some amazing places in nature. And purpose. We want to have impact on local communities, travel with a sense of meaning and transformative experiences. We also partner with nonprofits on the ground and have a donation component to our trips, give back component. We support a lot of women's cooperatives and local organizations. So you can read lots more about all that on our website. But today we're going to be talking about Cuba. So just a little of what you're going to hear. So we'll give you a Cuba snapshot to kind of understand some of the background. We're always talking about culture in our trips. It's such an important part of the travel piece. So we'll give you a little cultural overview. And then we'll talk about the itinerary itself, what makes it unique. We'll talk about the retreat portion of the trip. We'll go through the day-to-day itinerary. We'll give you travel tips on Cuba. You'll have time to answer your questions and a little discount for you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew. Andrew, feel free and introduce yourself, and then got a little Cuba snapshot, and then give us a little history.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Andrew Tyree. I'm the founder of Coast to Costa Travel. I have worked with Ashley and Traverse for years now. Ashley came to Cuba with us, and we've collaborated on some Cuba things. I've had some of my travelers go with her. They offer a lot more destinations they do than we do, and they also are a very kind of like-minded travel group. So we've found some synergy and have talked to each other even during the pandemic when we were both not working during travel about travel in general. So we have a long history of kind of working together and collaborating on stuff and being like, travel's amazing, this is difficult, like what do we do? We've kind of been very collaborative, which I super appreciate. Yeah, so they had asked me to kind of help out with the on the ground things for Cuba. I've been doing trips to Cuba since Obama opened it. About 2 months after he opened it was the first time I went. Americans were allowed to go before that, but didn't, by and large, did not. We always kind of, as a culture, like North Americans, people from the United States, we thought it wasn't allowed. When Obama kind of loosened things, my company, I was there on the ground a lot of times, from 2015 all the way up until the last trip I did actually pre-pandemic, was February of 2020 in Cuba. And we had heard of this weird little thing called COVID that was happening. And my wife had texted to say like, hey, you should get some masks for the airport on the way home. There's some weird disease. So we were doing tons of Cuba trips for the 5 years leading up to it. Cuba's incredible and it has problems. There's both of these things. It's a beautiful country. Kind of like Ashley was saying, also, we encourage everyone to be open and chatty with the local people. It's a very open and diverse and beautiful like culture in general. A ton of music. All those things you've heard are true. There is music everywhere. You will be seeing live music a lot. There's art everywhere. There is the food of the places that we kind of have on a recommended list are all sort of privately run restaurants. The Cuban government, this is like a little brief snapshot of current Cuba since the revolution. Oh, I like this Cuban history slide that's coming up. I won't go over all of these, but I'll tell you kind of where Cuba is at currently in the Diaz-Canel era. So let's see, Cuban Missile Crisis will start like the Cuban Revolution 1959 until now. It's been under sort of the same leadership, let's say. Fidel Castro, most of it, Raul Castro kind of toward the end for a little bit, and then Diaz-Canel, a new guy, which has kind of fallen under the same category of like how they've been kind of running the country. Um, it has been with embargoes, it has been economically depressed since the kind of the fall of the Soviet Union, and they weren't getting sort of support from Russia. So Cuba is an impoverished place. There is not crime though. There's a very, very, very little crime against tourists or against just kind of local Cuban people. So it's a very safe place to be, but there are kind of social issues that are happening there that are difficult. Our trips integrate into like you will see the fun places that tourism happens, and you'll also see real life Cuba and how it goes. You'll go kind of on a walking tour and you'll see like a beautiful plaza that's been redone, and you'll also see places where there's kind of food rations, so that both of those things all exist. It is a very culturally immersive trip. The conversation about Cuba comes up while you're in Cuba more more often than in other places that I travel. I find it's such like a dense topic and such like a varied, colorful history and past and current that everybody is always kind of discussing it, especially with Cuban America relations. Our government and their government have been sort of at odds since the 60s, but like every Cuban has family that lives in the United States, all of them. I'm assuming most of these travelers are coming from the US, I would imagine, but they have family members all over the place. So you'll walk down the street. When I first went, I was like, are they going to be mad at us because of the embargo, because our governments are not, uh, friends? And I remember walking down the street, like one of the first ones, and hey, like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from California. And they're like, my cousin's in St. Louis. And I'd be like, cool. Like, St. Louis is in America. Like, they're just down to like talk with you, to chat. There'll be, so much interaction because I don't know what it is. There's such a talking to strangers is such a bigger thing than it is in America. No one like stays in their lane and does their thing. They're like, "What's up? Where are you from?" They're not trying to harm you. They're not usually trying to sell you something. Sometimes trying to sell you something, but a lot of times they're just like, "My uncle's in St. Louis," kind of chat. Like, "How's it going? Are you liking it?" Like, "What's up?" Like, tell your friends Cuba's good. So, I have a deep love for Cuba. I have done it so many times that we've kind of worked out how to make Cuba run smoothly for American travelers because it is not always the smoothest thing. Vans have broken down. I've pop started vans. Um, Restaurants are out of food. We have to go to other restaurants. There's like we had a rental house before that the whole roof caved in right before we got there. We don't use that one anymore. So there's been a little bit of trial and effort of things that have happened throughout the years. Our Cuba trip currently is literally all those 5 years I was telling them before I jumped on the call, I was there almost once a month during those 5 years. So more than 50 times probably I've personally been. So everything has been sort of really, really like dialed in where it's really great. But there's also flexibility and freedom to kind of, there's free time. You can wander around. One of the main things that has made navigating Cuba with groups of American travelers that I'm bringing so easy and so enjoyable is our guide Talia. She's pictured here, pointing up in tour fashion, and everyone's saying, "Ooh, that's very interesting." She's fascinating. She is trilingual. She speaks French also, but her English. She was raised on Saturday Night Live, so she speaks English really well. She makes American jokes. She's from Havana, but is extremely good at English and like knows Jimmy Fallon and things that other Cubans don't know as much. So she's very, very funny, has a bit of a potty mouth, which I'm super into. She's very, very informed. So she's a classically trained, went to university for English and for tourism. So she's a tour guide by like certified by the government from a tourism group called Havana Tour. We we get her privately, not via Havana Tour, and I pay her directly. And there'll be more on that in a second. She is awesome. She will answer all of the questions that she in the way she's supposed to answer them. Things are going well here, all that kind of stuff. And then she'll be like, man, this is the real deal. Like, so you get it's very much like traveling around with your friend Talia that's from Havana. That's kind of the vibe or the feel that we like to go for. um, let's see. we have a policy, or it was sort of, I'm just kind of DIY. I made my own. Ashley's kind of the same way. We made these travel companies and kind of broke out of the mold and made these dream jobs kind of happen. So I'm very DIY. So the sort of like core of what we do is to pay people directly and to pay people fair American wages. I worked in restaurants forever, so I started doing wages off of what American in a fancy restaurant tips would be per night is what I would pay people for a night. They were like, "Oh, okay." So I have from the jump paid everybody like a very very not a living wage, but like way more than like a wage would normally be. Which I think is just fair. They treat us so well, so they everybody is very very like paid very well for their services, and they're also paid directly. So I'm not paying Havana Tour, which then pays Talia, for example. I'm paying Talia. She gets the money directly. She goes home to her family with it. That's how that goes. Um, that is the reason that we are allowed to still do Cuba trips. So what started as kind of like a ethos, like a DIY, we want to just pay people directly, became it became outlawed to not do it that way. The Cuban government basically, pardon me, runs tourism, they run the education, they run the food, they run everything. And there's this tiny sect of people, pardon me, that have private bed and breakfast, which is where you'll be staying. Telia, we just pay her privately as opposed to the thing. Our driver is an independent contractor. We only pay direct independent contractors. So it makes the trip legal and it makes the trip way better because you're getting this much more like authentic experience out of it. Let's see what we have here. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew. I can just go over a few of the inclusions of the trip. And like Andrew said, like it's really important as both of us, it's really important for us that money stays in the local community. And Cuba is definitely a different case than other places that we travel to. It's much more to navigate. We were talking before we started the call about how you have to have plans A through E, so there's a lot of moving pieces going on there. So in this retreat that we do, that's based on our like group trip to Cuba that we've done many times before. We stay at what Andrew said, Casa Particulares, which are the privately owned accommodations. And we have a driver who's with us the whole time. We'll be talking in just a moment about the workshop part of this. That we do like adventure and somatic retreats with Kim. She's on the call with us, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Some of the things that you'll get to experience, we'll do Havana art and architecture tour. We'll walk around Trinidad. We're going to go through the day-to-day itinerary here in a little bit. And we visit a tobacco farm and go for a horse ride. You'll get to see, even if you don't smoke, it's very fascinating to see how cigars are rolled and how tobacco is grown. We'll go to the Bay of Pigs. You'll learn a little bit of history or refresh your history on that, get lots of beach time. As Andrew mentioned, there's so many artists and artisans. We'll visit a fifth generation pottery studio, visit an organic farm, have farm to table meals. And then, of course, it is Cuba, so there's opportunities for music and nightlife. So let's talk a little bit about the retreat part of it. So this picture is from Iceland with Kim. That was our first adventure retreat together. So I'm going to hand this over to Kim in a second. But one of the ideas about a somatic retreat, an adventure retreat, is you're being immersed. You're immersed in nature and culture. You're challenged physically. You're challenged like mentally on a soul level. The idea being that you're like shifting perspective and building resilience. And Cuba is a great place for building resilience because as we were talking, plans don't always go as planned and you have to be flexible and kind of roll with it. This is a women's retreat, so you're connecting with other conscious females and really a chance for up leveling, for healing, for transformation. So Kim, I'll hand it over to you to talk a little bit.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Jeffs, and I'm located in North Carolina. And the Cuba will be our third trip with Traverse Journeys. But Yeah, and I've loved every minute of working with you guys. Similar to what Andrew said, we're all coming from the similar perspective of like travel with purpose and intention. So the difference between like just traveling and a retreat is that there is this like self-growth transformational process that can happen. We take time for inquiry. I help women develop both personally and professionally, in their lives. And we develop a greater sense of self when we're influenced by the experiences we have. So we take time and an inventory every day to be really conscious of what we're seeing in Cuba, both like from the artistic and the music and the cultural perspectives, but also maybe some of the difficult things that we might see. And we spend time in community with the other travelers, kind of processing what we're noticing and seeing how that is influencing like our life during the trip, but also how that might influence us when we go back home. So my specialty is in mental health and something called somatic psychology. So we integrate the felt sense experience of the body as well as our emotions and thoughts. So we're very much, on this trip, get to see a lot of like beauty and art and culture, but we're also going to come in contact with maybe some difficult experiences of poverty and things not working well and things like that. And it's an opportunity for us to grow, like, Ashley was saying, like personally, spiritually, take an inventory of like what might need to shift in our life going forward. I know some people, for a lot of us, like Cuba has been this like taboo place that we're really curious about going and seeing. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to work with Ashley and also Andrew, who's been there so many times. Because like we're not just gonna come in as like these voyeurs into like other people's lives. We're really gonna get the opportunity with like seasoned, these seasoned travel uh, leaders to really integrate into the community, and we won't shy away from like the difficulty that we might see. We're gonna process that. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna share our experiences. So I very much look forward to this trip. We're planning another retreat with Traverse Journeys in, is it next month? Next month to Peru, and we're hiking Machu Picchu. So that's I just did a 7-mile hike this morning in prep for that.
Yeah.
It's a very physical trip. I'm excited to, roll some cigars and go out dancing and have fun with people. It'll be a different experience of transformation, through art and culture and things like that. But yeah, I hope that's enough. I'm happy to say
Yeah,
more.
that's perfect.
Ashley. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. And like we'll have workshops every day, might be an hour or two. And it all depends on the activity schedule. One of the things that's so great about doing these adventure retreats, thematic retreats, is the schedules are flexible and there can be bumps in the road and stuff. And so that helps us remain in that kind of like resilient attitude with even just our workshops and when we have them. So I'd love to read you some testimonials from previous retreat attendees. So Bridget said, with the perfect blend of spirituality, professional development, and fun, I came home feeling refreshed, centered, and so inspired. I've already started writing a curriculum for 2 new groups I'm adding to my counseling practice. Kim held a sacred space for us all to dive deep when we needed, all the while providing an amazing vacation-like itinerary. I can't wait for the next one. And Carmen said, after going through a rough patch and feeling completely invisible, I decided to go on one of Kim's retreats. I not only came back feeling re-energized and positive about my outcomes, but I made friendships that I will treasure for a lifetime. Kim has an amazing ability to connect with her clients that only comes from her over 20 years of experience as a therapist. She asks poignant questions and posits viable alternatives to the cyclical behaviors our minds get accustomed to. The immersive experience of a retreat was very helpful because almost immediately I caught myself applying the skills being discussed. And one more, as a woman of color, I felt that Kim does an incredible job understanding the experiences of different people. I've had many therapists claim that they do this, but truly have no clue. I felt safe, understood, and heard every time I shared my unique points of view. In addition to the workshops that were offered, the synergy being co-created on a daily basis with other retreat participants is something that needs to be highlighted as a powerful tool for healing. So with that, let's take a little trip. So Andrew, I'll hand it over to you and I'll just keep the slides going and you can tell us kind of like the day-to-day and what we do. So
Totally.
starting in Havana.
Just really quickly, side note, this sounds lovely. I'm just to be clear, I'm not going to be on the ground on this one. It is a women's trip, but I love the fact that there's so much that you're pointing out that you're going to be sort of processing and talking about the experience of the community that you're visiting. It ends up sort of becoming sort of part of like, even on a non sort of specific trip, it ends up becoming sort of part of the conversation. But I love that Kim is trained in this and has a background in psychology, because there's some processing to do, and it ends up being processed over a meal or in your workshops or over a rum or something. And it's like there's just so much there's so much kind of input there, and so many things that you're going to observe that again are like really amazing and really hard also. So this sounds lovely. Kudos, everybody. Just a little side note, it sounds super cool. All right, so the first day is your arrival day. Nothing really happens on the arrival day. The Talia will be shuttling back and forth. She will have a sign when you get out of the airport. That's the first thing to know. So you'll get into the Havana airport. We'll be, via Ashley, providing visas and all of the information that you'll need to arrive into Havana. Excuse me. You will not have internet when you get there. So take screenshots of everything, your itinerary, your visa information, and have a hard copy of your visa. You'll get in. They'll take you to the casa particular, which, like she was saying, is like a bed and breakfast basically. It's not this particular building, but it's like 2 streets over from that, but it kind of looks like that. It's lovely. It's 2 blocks off of what's called the Malecon, which is like the big seawall that goes around Havana. So it's 2 blocks off of that. So you can walk this way and look at the ocean from the roof of the house. You can see the ocean and all of Havana. If you walk this way a little bit, you get into Old Havana, which we used to stay in, but it's a little too rambunctious down there at night. It's too loud. Welcome dinner feast, again, at these privately owned restaurants. It's a really great place. Day one, everybody's kind of getting in, a little, not jet laggy, but kind of like a travel day. The dinner gets kind of the group introduced to each other. It's really nice. You all have done this many times, but there's kind of icebreakery things and food and all this, which, helps kind of unify the group right off the bat. Day 2, so Talia again will be with you the whole time, but day 2 you're going to be walking around with Talia. Pardon me, walking around with Talia to get sort of the whole picture. Let's say, well, the beginning of the whole picture, to be like, oh, this is this, and this is that. You get kind of a broad strokes of kind of Cuba, the architecture, a little bit of the art on that first day, not like as deep as you get later, but sort of like broad strokes Cuban sort of walking tour. You'll have some lunch sort of in the middle of the day. A van tour of the outer part of Havana. You could probably be there for a year and not see everything. It's really, really dense and like really cool. I don't know. There's just so many layers to it, but we do what we can to do on that first day, kind of get you, or not on that, I guess the second day, you get kind of acquainted with where you are again in like broad strokes. It's also to sort of orientate yourself so you get back to the house easily, because later in the week you'll have times and opportunities that you can be like, some free time, we're going to bounce out, and like you'll know how to get back. So that's day 1 and 2. Day 3, we do a little road trip. Here's the thing, I'm just going to say it now because it gets confusing. You can take a backpack with 2 nights worth of clothes, stuff to swim in, and Ashley will put you in when you're there. You can leave your large luggage in your Havana, bring it into the living room / lobby. They'll put it under lock and key, so you don't have to like schlep stuff around all down Cuba, because you're going on a road trip. You want a little backpack, right? A little 2-dayer. So we go to the Bay of Pigs. So from Havana, which is in the north, you go straight down, kind of like, what is that, southeast to the Bay of Pigs. It's about 2.5 hours. You get to where this picture is taken. The bay is crystal clear. That kind of reddish in the water is like an algae that comes up, like a seaweed. But aside from that, the water is super, super clear. That little, the bottom photo is a little house there's lunch provided for you. They make mojitos. You can have a beer. You can hang out in the water. You can have just a coconut water, whatever you want to have. Excuse me. You're staying at the Bay of Pigs on this one, huh? I forgot about that. Okay, so you'll be staying in these casitas. So there's like how do I say it? So along the beach right there, starting from this greenhouse, there's like 4 or 5 houses in a row that are all right on the beach. So the group will be sort of staying in those houses. So you'll have kind of a center meeting point, but in all of those little houses, you'll be kind of like Cuban bed and breakfast, like family stay casas particulares, they call them. So they're all privately run houses. They will have obviously beach access. They're right on the beach. They'll have food there. They can cook for you there. For if you want to work out, breakfast is always provided. Most like some of the meals are, but most of the meals are on your own. But you would just like kind of arrange with your house mom, be like, hey, can we have some breakfast, and they'll whip it up for you. It's gorgeous. You'll probably be doing like your sessions and meditation and stuff on the beach. And I'm living in Los Angeles and there's not quiet, and that is lovely and quiet. So enjoy that. And it's also kind of breaks up the road trip too, where you like, okay, we're 2.5 hours, and I'm getting a little, yeah, then you're there. Trinidad, from the Bay of Pigs, you're gonna be sad to leave, but you have to leave. You're gonna jump back in the van. You're gonna go another about 2.5 hours to Trinidad. It is super artistic. These pictures, if you look at kind of the picture that's on the right, the cobblestone streets, so it's a colonial city. This is a weird little side note. So the Spaniards colonized South America, and they would send their boats over to come back with gold. So they had to offset the weight of the gold on the way back, otherwise the ships would be too buoyant. So they filled them with this cobblestone, put a bunch of little rocks to make the boats, whatever. So they sailed it over, unloaded all the cobblestone, made the streets of Trinidad. So these streets are 500-year-old cobblestones, and then they would put their stolen gold back in the thing and sail it back to Spain. That's a whole nother topic. But it's pretty crazy. So like all these cobblestone streets are still completely preserved. It's a UNESCO heritage site. The city itself is the UNESCO heritage site, at least like the historical center. You'll also be staying in homestays there. So probably one of them, because the one we have has like more room. There's kind of a back area, really pretty patios. You go up on the little terrace, you can see it. Trinidad is right on the water, but it's not really good beach. But the town itself is like, it's just gorgeous. Tons and tons and tons of art. You like, when you kind of are like, what's Cuba like? And you hear like a kind of a fluty sound. That is in Trinidad. They'll have like little Cuban 3-piece bands with an old guy on a flute, and you're like, oh dang, it's like that. It's lovely, lovely, lovely. It also, Trinidad can party, so there's like really mellow day stuff, and then also you can go to like a club that's in a cave. So if anyone's feeling adventurous and up for some dancing, literally in a, I don't know how, like, Ashley, did you go? It's like super far into the ground, and it's this massive discoteca in a cave. In the States, they would be like, this is unsafe and you can't do that. You should go. Just saying, just a little, just a little side note. Yeah, I was in Cuba like kind of recently. I'm 42 and I have a 3-year-old daughter now. I'm not like clubbing these days. I went in, when was that? January of last year, or no, March of last year. I went and it was great. Just saying. Okay, next one. It's just like it's the weirdness of it alone is crazy. They're like, it's $5 to get in, which in Cuba, like you don't, that's a crazy thing. But then they're like, then we give you 2 drinks for that price, and you're like, oh, this is a crazy deal. And even in and of itself, it's just amazing. So one of the things, this is Chichi. He has been making pottery. Their family is called Santander, is their last name. They've been making pottery for 5 generations in the town of Trinidad. You'll go into their family home that they've built into like a pottery studio after all of these years. He spins pottery. He shows you how they do things. They do it kind of in the same way. This, like Ashley kind of alluded to this before, but like, buy the pottery, get the things. If you're in a place like this, I highly encourage. I'm like not a very consumer kind of person in the United States. I'm like, we're in this consumerist society. I don't love like overbuying. Overbuy in Cuba. They're handcrafted, amazing things that make really good gifts and souvenirs. I have pottery in my house from the million times I've been there. like still to like just so it's so good, and it really does go like immediately to the person that you're buying it from. Yeah, that's one of the things. Ooh, one of the little side notes too is Talia goes on, you'll do sort of like a walking tour in the old part of Trinidad, but it's art leaning walking tour. So like there's these galleries where you'll like talk to a bunch of artists who are doing stuff. There's the pottery thing, you'll be talking to them while they're spinning their clay. So yeah, Trinidad's a highlight in my opinion. Then we go back to Havana. So on the way there, you go through kind of country roads to get to the Bay of Pigs and then to and then to Trinidad. On the way back, you'll take like the freeway. It's kind of a longer straight stretch. It's about 4 hours. But you'll stop for lunch. There's like, I'm sure a pee break and these things. Every time you stop, also there's like weird kind of roadside stands to stop at. There's interesting things to see. You can get a little coffee, like an espresso for like 40 cents. It's pretty cool. It's every time I really enjoyed sort of the road trip time. So you get back into Havana sort of in the evening, afternoon, evening. Everything again, like just goes slow there. It's like a slow moving place. We have, okay, so the picture that's there, it's called the Fábrica de Arte Cubano, and it is an abandoned factory that artists asked the government, hey, this factory is just sitting there. Do you think we could use it as an art space? And the government said yes. The Cuban government, for all of their things that I may not agree with, they promote art and they let artists kind of like do their thing. And it's actually a paid job to be an artist. You don't have to like be a waiter to be an artist. You can just get your monthly stipend as an artist. So the major artists in Havana kind of took over this factory and made it into this thing. There's I think 3 or 4 music venues inside. There are like countless galleries. There's like a videotech. I don't know what that would be called, like screenings. They do screenings in this one area. Bars. There's multiple restaurants right by that smokestack in the picture. There's like a really fancy restaurant. There's like a place that does like sandwiches. They're extra good that they bake their bread there. It's insane. We have made friends over the years of going there so often. I've made friends with some of the curators. So the curators, you'll get back to the house. You'll take, have a little breather, chill a little bit, get cleaned up, get gussied up, because at this place, our curator friends meet you all before, take you through and show you the whole thing before it actually opens, because the picture there is very realistic. It gets packed in there later. So we go, I think they open at 8 and we'll go at like 7 or 7:30 to tour the place before the doors even open. So you'll get kind of like a VIP experience. It's another place that you're allowed to buy art. Buying art in Cuba is really great. You have to usually transport it back. The Fábrica de Arte Cubano sells kind of higher end art for anyone who's, interested or curious in this. You can PayPal them after you get back to the United States, and they have ways of paying it once you're out of Cuba. Side note, everything in Cuba is paid for in cash. Bring about $100 per day. It's more than you'll actually need if you're not buying like high-end art, but bring, let's say, $700 in on you, and you'll use that kind of to pay for meals and different like little stuff. At the Fábrica de Arte, it's one of the only places that you can actually buy something not in cash. So it's phenomenal. And it's again a ton of Cuban art that's very subversive, very kind of like anti-establishment and anti-government in a building that the government sort of like gave them. I love that. Me personally, I think that's so cheeky of them and so awesome. Anyway, little side note.
Awesome.
It's so cool. They'll be like, oh my gosh, there's like, you're allowed to say that? Are you allowed to like do that art? It's phenomenal. Viñales. So Viñales is a UNESCO heritage site as well. It's in the province of Pinar del Rio. It is about 2 hours from Havana. With a PP stop, it's probably 2.5. You'll go in the morning. You'll have your breakfast in Havana in your casa particular. The van will drive you. Talia will be there. We go into this that looks like this, which also the photos and on the internet just doesn't do it justice. It looks like, I always say it looks like The Land Before Time, and then my daughter watched The Land Before Time the other day, and that movie, it's better than The Land Before Time. It's incredible looking. There's these like cliffs that just jut out of the valley floor that are filled with caves. It's like jungle meets valley. It's beautiful. You'll get there. There's like this amazing kind of like rest stop area that's on this bluff that you can see the whole thing. You'll stretch your legs a little bit, get a little snack, get horses. You ride down into the valley. The horse ride takes about 2 or 3 hours, but not the whole time on a horse. You'll stop at a farm. They'll teach you how kind of the ways of the farm, how it goes. They grow tobacco, they grow coffee, they grow citrus of all different types, like citrus that we don't even have over here, like a type of orange that doesn't exist, types of limes that don't exist in the United States. Like Ashley was saying, even if you don't smoke, it's pretty awesome to just see what they've been cultivating there for so long. This is another like kind of they produce all the tobacco that makes sort of why can't I think of any names because I'm not a cigar smoker. Cuba, Cohibas and all the like kind of fancy um, Cuban cigars are made at these farms in Pinal del Rio. So the farmers grow all the tobacco. The government takes as their tax 90% of their product and leaves them with 10%. So these guys are left with 10% and they make their own cohibas without like their own cigars without chemicals. So the government puts chemicals in theirs, they don't. So as gifts, this is literally buying directly from a producer. They're non chemicals, non-pesticide. They have like old school methods of naturally keeping the bugs and stuff away and naturally preserving them. I highly recommend them. I'm not a cigar smoker, but I do have a cigar when I go there. And from this guy, Leonardo is his name. It's amazing. It's really good. It's really good. I highly recommend him. He'll sell you like a little bundle also that you can take home. So get ready for that. Yeah. So that's kind of on that last day, on kind of the last day in Indianapolis. Also, you'll have sort of a dinner at the end of the night, farm to table. It's like a 17 course meal, I think. So much that one. So much stuff comes out. Good slide maneuver, Ashley. It's incredible and it overlooks the valley and it's kind of on the last day, like evening that you're there. So it's this really nice way to kind of like put a bow on the whole week. There will be, I'm sure, really good table discussions about what's happened during the week and processing and being grateful for the whole thing and all of that kind of stuff. Usually there's a couple of tears that happen. I've been known to cry at this meal multiple times. It's just a really emotional experience to like go through the whole week and just see everything and you'll become really close to Talia and with our drivers and like with all the people. And then it's kind of like you start being like, oh yeah, it's time to like get out of here and say goodbye. And it's sad. It's a bit hard to leave every time. But yeah, it looks like that. But again, the photo doesn't do it justice. It's a smorgasbord of a meal. It's really, really good. And they just make it literally on this organic farm that you're like sort of dining. But yeah,
Yeah, and the
that's
farm is amazing. You can go walk around and see the different plants and like see what they're growing. And yeah, it's really, really cool.
and you can like actually say you can kind of if you just talk to some of the farmers, be like, "What's this?" and they'll just be like, "Hey man, this is this," and, da, da, da. And they'll just kind of like give you impromptu tours sometimes. Also, yeah, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, do you want to like anything more you want to say, Andrew, about accommodations? These are just two of the pictures, but
Yeah, I know. So you had asked for pictures. I weirdly don't. I couldn't find a lot. This is our house. So the one on the left is the Trinidad house, the one that's like orange and yellow, or yeah, kind of reddish and yellow. That's the house in Trinidad. So you'll see the little tiles on the right, on the left. That's the family house, and then they built sort of a mini bed and breakfast hotel thing in the back. Really beautiful, right in the center of town. It's hard to say, but like from where this photo's taken, if you look out and you can see the ocean, you can just see the entire city, which is all cobblestone and clay roofed, and like it's beautiful. The sunrise and the sunset are both phenomenal. The photo on the right is our house in Havana. So it's the entrance is kind of the lobby. There's a couple rooms down there, and then there's the two other floors above. So the whole group will be in this one. That roof that you see is a terrace. They have a little bar there during certain hours, so you can get like a coffee or like a little rum drink or whatever. And if you look if you're on that balcony facing me, you would see the ocean. You're like 2 streets away from the Malecon, from like the seawall. It's all again privately run. Breakfast is served in those places. Breakfast is included. The coffee's super strong and really good. They give you like fruit and smoothies and like eggs, however you like them, and all these kind of normal breakfast things, but just served or like whipped up right in front of you. Yeah, the accommodations are super clean. The one in Havana has little plug-in hair dryer things. So it's like you would be kind of at a little hotel. Is sort of how they're structured. The one in Trinidad is like you walk through the family's house, through their living room to get to the thing. It's more of like a homestay, except you're sort of in the back area. But they'll just be like watching TV. You're like, hey, and like walk through. So it's strange for us as Americans a little bit, but they're like, come in, like, welcome. How was your day? How did it go? So it's like your Cuban mom will be there like waiting for you. How was the club? You know what I mean? Like that kind of vibe. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And just some tips for like accommodations. I know for me, I'm a very light sleeper, and so earplugs are great. If you want to go even like the next step, if you have like Bose headphones or like noise canceling headphones, it's not super comfortable to sleep in, but if you're picking, like do I want street noise or do I want like silence, I'll wear those. Um, the default is double occupancy, which means there's like two twin beds. There's limited amounts for people to have single rooms. So if you know you want a single room, just yourself, make sure you snag that in the beginning because we have limited rooms because we want everyone to be able to stay together in the same place.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of the accommodations. More Cuba tips. Andrew, you want to take these ones?
Yeah. Seasons and weather. What's the month you're going again?
It's October or November. November.
Great. November is great. Thank you. We we get a lot of people that want to go in the wintertime because the wintertime here, especially in like the New Yorkers and things like this, where it's freezing, you go to Cuba and it's like 80 degrees. So it'll be really, really nice. November is good. You're just past hurricane season, which ends kind of early October. Um, it's perfect. Literally, November and December are kind of my favorite months to go. Again, because it's cold here and you get there and it's just shorts and t-shirt weather. Bring a little bit. I'm sure Ashley will send you kind of like a packing list, but we recommend bringing kind of some layers, like a windbreaker that's kind of rainproof, waterproof. It rains there sometimes. It's just like a tropical island, so like it'll be nice, or really hot, and then just rain will happen. So you want to be kind of prepared for that. Um, there's not really dress code in general. It's a very lax culture. I know some places, like Latin American places, even it's like you have to be very modest. You have to cover your shoulders. That's not really the case here. Even if you're like going into a cathedral, it's not. There's not as many kind of like cultural rules around dress. Do be comfortable though. Again, like the weather will change quite a bit, so you want to have like layers, or uh, you don't want to pack too warm and just be hot the whole time. Um, Comfortable shoes that are good for walking. I've had heels break in cobblestone. I've had like flip flop sandals break in Trinidad multiple times. I had to like backpack. What do they call it? Piggyback ride someone through town. Um, all the joys of being a tour operator. It's like I've had to try. This lady broke heels, and we were out, and she was like, "Ooh, can we just find a shoe store?" And we couldn't find a shoe store, and she was in Havana, and I was like, "This isn't." So we had to find her like a bike taxi to get home. It was like a whole. It ended up being a whole thing. Don't bring heels. Really, there's not really a need for them at all. Um, Especially because it just makes Talia will have to do a lot of work to fix them. Comfortable walking shoes. Tevas are super good. Like beat up running shoes that you can just kind of walk around and get messy. The things that you can get messy, especially in the footwear section, are really good. Money, like I was kind of alluding to. So you can't use a credit card. You can't use a European credit card a lot of times. Like their banking sucks. I'm just gonna say it. It's not good. Even with I've given this warning to everybody. So like I've had Canadians that have come that they're like, but I'm Canadian, so I don't have that American block like we have the embargo with the United States. It's still there's really long lines at the bank. The ATM fees are really expensive. The ATMs don't work a lot of times. So in general, literally just bring cash. So like I always tell people, $100 a day. you'll go home with money. It doesn't cost that much. A meal is like $6 to $10, maybe 15. Since Ashley and I went there also, it's gotten even less expensive. Um, I went back to multiple restaurants when I was there sort of in March, and I was like, man, this is like, I went to a really nice one. I don't drink, but I was having like a frappe, like a fancy kind of cocktaily thing without booze, and an appetizer and a main, and it was like $8 with tax and tip, at one that's like right by the cathedral. So it's inexpensive. Cigars cost money, art costs money. Those are the ones that like actually are pricey. Food is not that bad. Um, but bring cash. Ooh, no ripped bills. They won't accept a rip, even if it has a tiny tear in it. They're like, we can't touch this. Don't try to bring small bills as much as possible, tens, fives, and ones, which is annoying, but they won't have change for 100. The group themselves will have to kind of play banker to the group. So if someone, it'll become a thing, you'll get familiar with it. But like someone will pay for a dinner with 100 of, let's say, like the whole group, and everyone has to pay them 8. That we call it the change game. The change game will happen while you're there. You have to kind of be the bankers, because Cubans will be like, we don't have change for 100, sorry. And there's no, I don't know, there's no plan B for a Cuban waiter. They like don't care. They just won't take 100. So you have to do that. Internet. Yay! My favorite Cuban topic. Their internet is tricky. I'm gonna lead with their internet is tricky. So Talia is an internet fan. So she is going to be the best at this. Put your phone on airplane mode. Even if you get a roaming plan, it won't work or won't work well. So in my humble opinion, just don't. You can put it on airplane mode, click on your Wi-Fi, and you buy internet cards. They're about $1 per. You scratch off like a 15-digit code and a 15-digit password to get in. It works 1 out of 7 times, and then we'll kick you off the internet. So in general, try to not be on the internet in Cuba. We're on the internet a lot. Think of it as a time to kind of like not be on it. If you have to check in with friends and family, do. If you have to do a little bit of work, again, try not to, because reliance on the internet in Cuba is very frustrating. It's really, really hard. You can go to the fanciest hotel. I've paid a $5 one, which in Cuba is insane. It's like a week's of wages for a $5 internet card for a 1 hour thing, and it still didn't work. It just is not a guarantee that it works very well. Talia, though, is your best resource at it, because somehow she has the magic touch with the internet. So if you need to use internet, be like Talia, who again, she's a guide, she's your friend, she's a fixer. She like gets things arranged. She makes restaurant reservations. She, when things are closed, makes them unclosed. She's magic. She's also magic as far as the internet goes. Sometimes with change too, you're like, we only have 100. I don't know what to do. She'll be like, and comes back with change. She's magic. So use her magic specifically for the internet. The visa again is support for the Cuban people is the reason that we're going. We will be sending you a visa kind of information. It'll have the address, Talia's name, the what's it called, the phone number of Talia. I highly recommend. They actually, this is a little side note, kind of for Ashley. The TSA. When the hell did I go? I went like very recently. I went very recently. Gosh, why can't I remember? Oh, in November. The TSA almost didn't let me go to Cuba, and I was like, no, no, no. Like, I go here all the time. Like, it's fine. The guy was like, you can't go, and I was like, I have my visa. I have my affidavit. They'll make you sign an affidavit saying that you're going to support to support the Cuban people, which again we are because we pay them directly. We will be sending you your visa. Take a screenshot. This is the thing that why he let me in. You take a screenshot on your phone of the itinerary, and if they ask you what your itinerary is, everything that's on the itinerary that Ashley will send you shows that you're doing support for the Cuban people. You show them that, you show them your visa, and you're fine. You're fully allowed to go there. The TSA rules change, and the employees of the TSA don't know what the current rules are. These are the current rules. There's also a new thing that we'll be sending you that 48 hours before your flight, you click on a link that they ask you to do it on your phone. They ask you it's kind of like an immigration paper worksheet thing that you do on your phone, and then it has a scan, like a barcode thing. Take a screenshot of that also. Again, you'll land there, won't have internet, your phone won't be able to access internet. So like a screenshot of your itinerary, a screenshot of your visa info, the physical visa that we'll be sending you. Your passport has to be valid for 6 months after the date that you get home, or they won't let you in. Very important. Um, excuse me. It sounds more complicated than it is, but like if you have everything in your photo section on screenshots, you're fine. It's mainly like 3 documents. And then the ethical travel thing. We pay Cubans very well, and they really appreciate us coming. I have a suggested donation list that I can kind of send to Ashley that she can give to you all, but it ends up coming up a lot after people visit. They're like, shoot, I should have brought stuff to kind of donate. If you have a particular thing that you like, I had a traveler recently that really liked art and really liked art for kids, and she brought packs of pens to kind of like give kids pens. I've had older travelers that are like, I'm old and my knee hurts, so they brought a ton of ace bandages, or they brought a ton of like Advil, pencils, pens, bandages, normal like school supplies, normal stuff they just are out of all the time there. So if someone does feel the need or feel sort of the desire to want to donate things, if you think of what you would want and then literally bring a bunch of that, it'll get distributed really well in Cuba.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. So, with all of that, if you would like to join us, we would absolutely love to have you. We're going in November. So, this is the link for it. You can find like the day-to-day itinerary and all of the information. And we're offering a discount. So, if you sign up before the 15th, you'll get $200 off. And now we can take some questions. So, and also more events coming up. Questions. Anybody have some things that we can answer for you? Feel free to just like unmute yourself and ask away. And if not, Kim, do you have anything that you want to ask?
Yeah, the only thing I would add it, because I get this question a lot, like, is it okay if I travel solo? The answer is yes. No one's ever a stranger on my trips, I promise you. And I do a lot of pre-trip things that maybe, other facilitators don't do with different travel companies or whatever. But we do start like a group chat. So participants get to, riff off of each other and talk about packing lists and things like that, or find roommates ahead of time. I do host a pre-trip and a post-trip call so that people can meet each other before they go. And then also like, just shifting cultures and being in a a communist culture and a more collective culture is very different. And so sometimes people have like culture shock when they come back, actually, or when they go there. So we do this like probably a week after we get home, we do a post-trip call and people can kind of debrief what was that like to get back to like our normal family and work routines and things like that. So I try to, the best I can, do a lot to like foster relationship, create like healing space for people to like process their feelings and emotions and things like that. And a lot of women who come on my trips, they've been multiple times. There's people already signed up for this trip who've traveled with me times before. So if anybody wants like, needs a recommendation or a referral, I'm happy to pair you up with somebody else who's traveled with me, just, as a facilitator to see what that's like. But no one's lots of people travel alone. I've traveled alone, even with Travers as a participant, actually. And that was a really cool experience. You don't have to play any roles. Here's the thing, when you travel alone, you fully get to like feel yourself, like with amongst all these strangers, right? And there's no roles to fill. So I've had people like come on the trip and like shift careers or change their name or like all this like really interesting stuff. But I tend to also attract a lot of women going through different life changes and new seasons of their life. So it's a really rich experience if you haven't traveled alone to actually do that, because there's no script you have to follow. So that was just a few things that I wanted to add.
Yeah,
But
that's
bring a
amazing.
friend,
Yeah,
come alone. Mm-hmm.
so amazing what you discover about yourself when you do some solo travel. That is absolutely for sure. Any other questions that we can answer? Yeah. Well, we will be sending out the recording to everyone. So in case you want to review anything or share with a friend, that'll be coming to you pretty soon. And we would love to see you in Cuba and stay in touch. And we're here. Thanks so much. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.